All right, guys, today is Wednesday, August 30th, 2023. So today's project for Steve's car, I'm going to try to set the engine and trans in the chassis, the new chassis. I've got to pretty much set it up with jack stands on all four corners and try to level it with bubble levels to get it zeroed out the best I can. That way I can set up the engine and trans with the 3 degrees down the transmission needs to be. That is a stock location engine mount set, which is right here. He actually got those yesterday. It's the spring perches that are on back order, not the motor mounts that I said in the video from that I posted this morning, video footage I took yesterday. Anyway, so this is a body mount set from Woody's. It's got speed holes in it. Looks pretty cool. They're stepped. So I'm going to find out how well these fit. But I'm actually going to use the original front mounts to place it on the chassis and then set those up in there. And I know I have to remove rivets and all that because I put a dozen side mount kits in. So he got me a new dust cover that goes on that ball pivot for the pitman arm to the center link. So looks like we got new engine mounts in the kit, some rubber mounts. So that's pretty cool. These are a little thin. Like the energy suspension ones are a lot more expensive, but they're super thick material. But you know, probably with his engine and stuff, it's not enough horsepower to probably tear anything like that up, I wouldn't think. But anyway, he also got a new spring perch set, and it's kind of weird because this is 456, which the chassis we're putting under it is 456, but these are urethane mounts right here. I can barely put my fingernail into those, but it came with a rubber set as well, which is pretty awesome. So I'm going to be using the rubber because those urethane ones, all they do is squeak. I installed a set a long time ago, put grease on them, and after just a little bit of time they started squeaking, so I ended up putting the rubber replacements in there and never looked back. So some people may have good luck with urethane shackle bushings, but not me. Once something doesn't go too well for me, and I just kind of learn from that and go on. I don't need to be going in there and trying to re-grease all that stuff, you know what I mean? You have to take all that apart to put grease on that stuff, so not too fun. So I'm gonna get started. All right, guys, I already did this video once, but I went in there and put it on the computer, and I was gonna put a video together to get it on YouTube, and I can't post that segment of this video. I was pretty irritated. I get a little mad when I see stuff like this because this could be, avoided. But for whatever reason, there's shops out there that some of the people don't take pride in their work. So this is the chassis from Steve's car. I removed this yesterday. This is the chassis that we're going to be using in Steve's car now. This is out of a 56 Chevy sedan. Now, the sedan frames and the hardtop frames are the same, except the hardtops have one extra body mount per side on the frame rail, and that's this one right here. This is a hardtop and probably convertible too. I've never worked on a convertible, but I'm assuming those are in there. But anyway, this is the body mount that you need for a hardtop. This has a spot weld indent here, here, and here. So I'm going to go in there and drill those out. I've already scribed this out so I can get a measurement off of it. But anyway, I've got to remove these and I've got to weld them on to this chassis. So that will make that a hardtop chassis. But other than that, the frames are the same. So I had a buddy stop by. It's been about an hour ago, and he watches the videos, and he's a know-it-all. He's a keyboard warrior. He'll tell you exactly how to restore a car and do everything, paint a car, and never done any of it a day in his life. But he'll tell you how to do it because he watches other videos and it makes him a professional. So I had to educate him on why, because his thing was, he goes, you shouldn't replace the chassis, you should just fix this one. So I had to educate him on this. So in case somebody else is wondering, I'm going to go ahead and set you straight here. So this frame has many problems, and that's why we are changing the chassis out. This chassis hasn't had any accident damage. This one has. This one's taken one hell of a lick at the back here. As you can see, I've showed in other videos, this corner of the frame rail has been put on right here. This is from another car. They did not put that in there straight. All somebody did was went in there and chopped that out and welded a new one on, didn't bother to square up anything. So this frame rail is out of square, and that's one of the reasons. Another reason we're doing it is because the shop flipped the leaf spring stuff to the inside of the frame so he could get wider tires on the car. This creates a domino effect of problems that have to be addressed. So Steve doesn't care to have the leaf springs on the inside anymore because of all the other work that has to go into it, so we're going to put it back to stock like this one's already set up for. The other problem this frame has, this frame rail right here has been put on, most likely from whatever chassis donor they used. That is a weld seam right through there, and this has been booger welded all up and through here, and it is also not put on square. They're off from where they're supposed to be. One is lower than the other. I measured it the other day, I just don't remember the measurement. So that frame rail, yes, this frame can be used, but that frame rail, the horn is going to have to be cut off and reset. Pretty much it needs to be set on a jig. Like if I had this, I was using this chassis, I would try to build a jig on the driveway and level everything with bubble levels, and then I would go in and try to cut this thing apart and re-put it back together. Now, I'm not going to be able to get it perfect, but I can for sure get it better than what they had. But one of the bad reasons that kind of warranted the body to come off and get another chassis is because we always suspected the frame rail was bent. Because when I first started going to Steve's house and working on his car, it did not have this body mount bolt in it or that body mount bolt. They had the cushions in between the body and the frame, but they didn't have the lower cushions on with the bolts and the washers. So I got under the car and I put in the cushion with the big washer and the bolt on this side, but when I got to this side, you couldn't even see the hole. So if you ever run into that, your body is probably just not sitting on the chassis right. Like if you put your body on, you need to square the body up on the chassis. And I just assumed they just stuck the body on and bolted it down, called it a day. So my idea was to loosen all the body mounts and then go in and try to measure and square up the body on the chassis. But then when I got in the car, I noticed all this stuff, that this whole corner had been put on. So I told Steve, I said, I think this frame's bent. When I found out for sure the frame was bent was when I tried to put the gas tank in and mock up the fill tube, and the fill tube was setting on top of the frame rail and it still needed to go down about a ½ inch to go inside of the gas tank. So I was going to have to C-notch that frame for the fill tube, and you shouldn't have to do that. That's when you kind of know something's wrong. So the other thing, when I was working at Steve's house on his car, like a year, I think it was about 2 years ago is when I started, and then I'd go off and on for the next 2 years over there doing stuff. He bought a shock bar to put in here because the shock location is not correct now because they moved the leaf springs in. It changes the direction of or the angle of the shocks. So I told Steve just to get a shock bar, I would cut the shock bar mounting tabs off for the shocks, just the mounting tabs for the shocks, and relocate them and get them to the angle they needed to be and re-weld it. When we stuck the shock bar up there, there was like that much space in between the frame rail and the end of the shock bar, and I told him, I said, I think the shock bar is just a piece of crap. I didn't make it right. So he ordered another brand shock bar, and it was the same thing. You could put your whole hand in between the frame rails. So we had got under there and we put a big giant ratchet strap around the frame rails with the frame still attached to the car, and he got under there and he pulled that frame rail over with that ratchet strap. So I could have put that bolt in and welded up the shock bar, but it was going to have a lot of tension on it, which is not a good thing. It's band-aiding something, you know what I mean? So there's many reasons why that we're changing the chassis. And if Steve's paying somebody like me to go in here and cut all of that loose, cut the frame horn off, and go in here and try to fix all this stuff and square this frame up, he's going to be upside down in this very far. I mean, there's going to be a lot of labor involved in doing that, whereas it was cheaper just to go get another frame. That's why we did it. But my buddy the professional, you know, thinks it's better just to fix this one. He's not the one paying to have the work done, so he's going to say, oh yeah, you should just fix that. He's not paying for it. What does he care? You know what I mean? So anyway, that's the reason. So now I'm going to talk about the other big problem this thing has. Even if I did try to cut this frame apart and fix it, I can't fix it perfectly. The reason is, when you step over here, if you'll notice this frame rail, I don't know how well it's showing up, that frame rail's kicked out like that. So when that took the impact back there, it pulled that frame rail out. That's why the body bolt won't go in there. So I measured off this 56 frame right here at the two body mount locations, and dead middle of that hole to dead middle of that hole is 31.5. This one measures 32 3/8. That's how far off that frame has been out. So the frame rail's tweaked, and also when they put this on, they probably didn't even get this. This is probably not even the correct width from end to end. You know what I mean? Look at this Butamus stuff here. See how that's, like, this piece is higher than this piece. And then I'll get you right here. Look down this. So this new piece is going this way, and the old frame rail's going that way. So there's a V here. There's a V right there, where that's going like that and kicking down. Then you've got this mess over here, and this is a body mount location. Look how bent in this is. This is bent down from impact damage, and this is kicked up. So that's how much work would be in fixing all the crap on this frame. And then he wanted the leaf spring stuff back in the stock location, so we didn't have all this crap to do. So I would have to go in and remove these of their nice little work they done here, and I'm going to show you this. This is top quality stuff right here. So these are riveted from the factory to these frame rails. This is the original rivet holes in the frame. So people have moved leaf springs to the center before. They've done it, and they just bolted on. So, which is what they did. What they got to down here was this is cast iron. So they welded cast iron, put little welds on here, but instead of putting bolts in up here, there should be a rivet here and a rivet here, and they've put a bolt in here, and this one's actually at a hard angle. They didn't bother putting the bolts in either side at the front, so they just filled it full of booger weld, and it's booger welded up here. So that ought to hold really well on cast iron, especially when a leaf spring's holding up all the weight of the car. So that is really, really stupid work right there. Really stupid. And they did it on both sides. So this frame rail right here, this is all jacked up right in through here, and it's about that wide of a weld. So this was cut too short, and they just filled it full of weld. Now, he doesn't know who done this. This part right here could have been done when Steve got the car. He bought the car years ago. Could have been done before he got it. Who knows? He also doesn't know who done the frame rail, so we don't know who done that. But whoever did it, they just basically put a band-aid on a very big wound, is what they did. So it's not going to have no crappy more stuff done. This is going to fix all of the problems that that car had and make it a super nice car again. And I'm kind of saving the best for last. You guys that's been following this series, you have seen some pretty silly stuff that's been done to this car from it's either inexperience, laziness, I don't know, probably both. But I'm going to show you the real high quality work right here. This kind of blows me away. So right here is where this bracket right here was originally. So when you move your leaf springs to the inside, you put your left brackets on the right and your right brackets on the left on the inside. And that's how you can move them over. So that bracket was originally welded to the frame over here. You can see their original welds here from 55. They cut so far into this frame right here. That is deep, man. Look at my fingernail. So this is all cut deep as hell right there. They almost cut completely through the frame right here with a cutoff wheel. But that's not the best part. So look in this hole, and I'm going to move the camera in, and I want you to start looking for daylight here. See that right there? And my finger in there so you can see that. Look at this top quality work. That is completely cut, and they didn't even bother welding it up. They welded the brackets on. Why wouldn't you weld that up? Ain't that something? Nice job, guys. Nice job. You should be proud. So this thing is really kicked out right here, probably from the impact the frame took. It bulged this out. Anyway, so this area here needs to be worked on if the frame's going to be reused. But I cannot believe that somebody would cut into a frame like that. This is the foundation of the car. All of the weight back here is on these leaf springs. So it's structure. You know what I mean? Why would you not weld that up? That blows me away. That it is perfect spot right here for a stress fracture, and also under here. So I haven't even looked at the other side over there. I probably don't even need to. But my gosh, I can't believe that kind of crap right there. But whoever done that needs to be working at McDonald's, I can tell you that. So I've got a lot of stuff off of the chassis, and you know, I have to do a lot of transfer work to this, including the hard top body mounts. Those have to be moved over. So I've got the rear ends just sitting under there. I do have the leaf springs and everything out from under it. I took the cross member out, the brake lines, the fuel lines, all that stuff out of here. I need to take all the front suspension stuff off. So I'm actually going to use that roll around cart that Randy brought by, which was the guy that delivered Steve's car for him, and he's the one that brought the 56 over here as well. So I'm going to use his cart and set this chassis on it and try to transfer this I guess back into my backyard. I've got a little bullpen area back there that I keep my lawnmower in, but I think there's enough room to put this chassis in there up on its side. But it you know, it needs some help, you know what I mean? But that was the best way to go, is just another chassis, because now we aren't going to have any problems with the fill tube going in, body alignment, and that kind of stuff. So I'm just amazed at the crap quality work right there. I have no idea why somebody would not put the bolts and nuts in that front area right there. All you got to do is take a wrench and put a nut in the end of the wrench with a piece of masking tape and stick it up in there and run the bolt in there. You could get the nut and bolt in there. I don't understand, man. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. But anyway, that's you know, I've just about got it. So another thing my professional buddy wanted to comment on a while ago, and it irritated me a little bit. As you can tell, I'm a little bit fired up after seeing all this kind of garbage work that they did in person. After you get the body off, you can see all this stuff clearly. My buddy said, well, that's not a stock rear end in that frame. And I said, no, it's not. This is out of a 1976 Camaro. I went to the salvage and got this rear end and brought it over here, and I sandblasted it and put the perches on it and everything. I did everything, all the work to the rear end, and put it in the car at Steve's house. So I'm the one that put this rear end in there. So this is and I was telling him exactly what it was. This is a 1976 Camaro 10 bolt. The reason that I like these rear ends is they're the same, pretty much the same width. They're just a hair wider than a factory 55 rear end. It's like 60 inch to 60 and a quarter or something like that. I don't remember. But anyway, it's the perfect rear end. It's a 3-inch axle tube, so your factory U-bolts and everything fit just right. So to me, it's a great change. 10 bolts aren't for drag racing, I'm gonna tell you that right now. You put slicks on and you go power launching it using a trans brake, dumping the clutch on your standard transmission at $5 grand or whatever, you're probably gonna break your little 10 bolt, you know what I mean? This car is not a race car, so need to make that clear. One of Steve's complaints on this car was the RPMs that the engine was turning going down the highway at 65 miles an hour. That engine was zinging. Steve has a 700 R4 overdrive transmission, but it does not have a lockup switch in it. So, you know, it would drop a few hundred more RPM if it had a lockup switch in it. But anyway, it had the factory 55 rear end in it, which the gear ratio, it's either 410 or 411 for 55. I don't know which of the which it is. So anyway, I told my buddy, he goes, what is it? And I told him it's out of a Camaro, and it's a single track, and it has a 2.73 gear ratio, and he starts shaking his head. Should have put 373s in it. Okay. Steve's complaint is the car, the RPMs going down the highway, is way too high on it. Also, the fuel mileage is terrible. Not that you really have to worry about fuel mileage when you have an old hot rod with a 327 in it anyway. But I told Steve what I would do, and he said to do it, and that's what I did. So this is a 273 gear, but apparently I should have put a 373 in it from my professional buddy. That's not dropping very much, going from a 410 to a 373. But since he's the professional. Now, here's the reason why. A GM engineer on the 3rd generation F-bodies, they had a 700 R4 transmission in them, the automatic cars, and they had 10 bolts in them, and the majority of them were 273 gear. So a GM engineer designed that. And also, before you go spouting off gear ratios, what you coulda, woulda, shoulda done, you need to know the overall height of your tires before you even tell somebody what gear ratio they should run. He didn't even look at the tires, but he's going to tell me. And what I mean by that is, if you put really low profile tires on a car, it makes the gear ratio even worse for your RPMs to be higher. If you went with the taller tire, it would tame the RPMs down a little bit. Steve's not going drag racing. Steve's taking the grandkids and he's, going places. He's cruising it. He's driving it to work. He's enjoying the car. He wants to get out on the interstates and drive 75 miles an hour. You know what I mean? He doesn't want to drive at 60 with the RPM just ripping on that little 327. So that's why I put a 273 gear in it. But here's the main reason. I had a 55 Chevy with a 700 R4, and I did put a 273 10 bolt just like that one in there. So from personal experience is why I recommended that. So his little recommendation, he doesn't have any experience. So it kind of got up my skin a little bit, you know what I mean? So no, we're not going to go from a 410 to a 373. That's not enough drop. Now, if Steve was putting slicks on, taking to the drag strip and racing it, yeah, we'd probably put a 9-inch in it with 456s or something stupid in it. But we're not. It's realistically going to be just a cruiser. So, anyway, there's that. Anyway, guys, I'm going to go ahead and jump off here. I'm going to go ahead and upload this video. And hopefully I don't get any more buddies stopping by today trying to tell me how to do work that they don't even do themselves. Thanks for watching.